Honourable members, I call this meeting to order. Welcome to the 15th meeting of the House of Commons Special Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic. This will be a hybrid meeting. Members will be participating via video conference or in person.
That in order to avoid issues with sound, members participating in person should not also be connecting by video conference. And in order to ensure that those joining the meeting via video conference can be seen and heard by those in the chamber, two screens have been set up here on either side of the speaker's chair, and members in the chamber can listen to the floor audio or to interpretation using the earpieces on their desks.
Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. And please direct your remarks through the chair.
For those joining by video conference, I'd like to remind you to leave your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. Also, please note that if you want to speak in English, you need to be on the English channel for interpretation. And if you want to speak French, accordingly, you should do so on the French channel. And should you wish to alternate between the two languages, please change the channel for the language that you happen to be using at the time. Si des députés
Should members participating by video conference need to request the floor outside their designated speaking times, they should activate their microphone and state that they have a point of order. Those in the chamber can rise in the usual way.
Please note that today's proceedings will be televised in the same way as a typical sitting of the House. Nous allons maintenant.
We will now proceed to ministerial announcements, and I would ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister to take the floor. Thank you very much, Chair.
I rise today to address what so many people of colour live with every day. Over the past few days, we've seen horrific reports of police violence against black men and women south of the border. But these are not isolated incidents or elsewhere problems. Prejudice, discrimination, and violence is a lived reality for far too many people. It is a result of systems which far too often condone, normalize, perpetrate, and perpetuate inequality and injustice against people of color. As a country, we are not concerned bystanders simply watching what is happening next door. We are part of it. The calls for justice, for equality, for peace have found echo in our communities because anti-black racism is happening here, everywhere in Canada, every single day. This is something that our own staff, cabinet ministers, and colleagues face even in these halls. Over the past few days, I've heard many of these personal stories directly from them. And I'm not just talking about acts of violence, I'm also talking about microaggressions, which many of us may not even see. That is the daily reality of far too many racialized Canadians, and it needs to stop. When it comes to being an ally, I have made serious mistakes in the past, mistakes which I deeply regret and continue to learn from. And I want to thank my colleagues, community leaders, and fellow Canadians for opening my eyes to what is really going on in our communities and helping me better understand both privilege and power. I'm not perfect, but not being perfect is not a free pass to not do the right thing. It's not an excuse to not step up, to stand up for each other, to be an ally. I know that for so many people listening right now, the last thing you want to hear is another speech on racism from a white politician. I'm not here today to describe a reality I do not know, or speak to a pain I have not felt. I'm here because I want you to know that our government is listening. We hear your calls for justice, equality, and accountability. We acknowledge your frustration, your anger, your heartbreak. We see you. Depuis notre arrivée.
Since coming to power, our government has taken several concrete steps to fight anti-Black racism, systemic discrimination, and injustice across our country. We are working directly with communities and their leaders to bridge persistent gaps in Canada. For example, we granted $9 million to support programs for young Black Canadians. We have made sizable investments to allow the Public Health Agency to offer more mental health services to those who have experienced racism or intergenerational trauma. We are helping community organizations to obtain funding for the purchase of equipment or for rentals. We created the Anti-Racism Secretariat with a budget of $4.6 million to eliminate systemic obstacles, particularly in terms of employment, justice, social participation, which perpetuate injustice. We have made some progress, but we know that this work is far from over.
Over the past 5 years, our government has worked with communities to recognize and address injustices. We've taken action to support community organizations, invest in better data, and fight racism. And while we've made some progress, there is still so much more to do. Because here are the facts in Canada. Anti-Black racism is real. Unconscious bias is real. Systemic discrimination is real. For millions of Canadians, it is their daily lived reality. And the pain and damage it causes is real, too. Mr. Speaker, every Canadian who has felt the weight of oppression, every student who has the courage to demand a better future, every person who marches and posts and reads and fights from Vancouver to Montreal to Halifax expects more than the status quo. They expect more and deserve better. Le gouvernement du Canada.
The government of Canada has much work to do, but we're ready for it. We're ready to work with our colleagues from the opposition, with community leaders, and with Canadians to make our country a more equal and fair place. There is never any place for racism here, and we are going to stop at nothing to eradicate it from coast to coast. Thank you, Chair.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Over the past week, we have all been affected by the heartbreaking killing of George Floyd in the United States. The video is painful to watch. No one should ever have to plead for help while a crime is being committed, ignored by other members of law enforcement. La tragédie a déclenché des...
This tragedy has sparked marches, sit-ins, protests, and sadly, in some cases, riots. But I hope, most importantly, that it has sparked conversations. Racism is real, it is painful, and it is unacceptable.
Tragedy has sparked marches, sit-ins, protests, and sadly, in some cases, riots. But I hope, more importantly, it has sparked conversations. Racism is real, it is painful, and it is wrong. No one should ever feel unsafe because of the color of their skin, especially around police officers who have a duty and responsibility to uphold the law for all. Here in Canada, we are fortunate to live in a country that is welcoming, tolerant, and inclusive. Canada was a beacon of freedom to so many escaping slavery during the U.S. Civil War. Our nation has benefited immensely from great Canadians who overcame prejudices and discrimination to serve their communities and make Canada a better country. Lincoln Alexander, elected as a Conservative in 1968, was the first Black member of Parliament and went on to become the first Black cabinet minister. John Ware was born into slavery in South Carolina, but following the American Civil War, was a leading figure in bringing the first cattle to Alberta and spearheading the ranching industry that would become the backbone of the province. Josiah Henson, who escaped slavery to become a thriving businessman in Ontario. And of course, Viola Desmond, who challenged segregation in Nova Scotia. Black Canadians throughout history have not just built this nation with their contributions, they have also represented Canada with excellence and pride on the world stage. Like Harry Jerome, who represented Canada in 3 Olympic Games and won a bronze medal in 1964. He would go on to become a teacher in British Columbia, once again serving with excellence to try to make a better world for the next generation. And throughout our history, Black Canadians have put their lives on the line for their fellow Canadians, bravely serving around the world in our armed forces. While there are many things we can point to in our history with pride, that is not to say that we have a perfect record. Nor are we immune to the threat of racism or that anti-Black racism is just an American problem. Canada has had its own dark episodes of racism that cannot be ignored, and sadly, not just in our past. Every day, there are people who experience discrimination or racism in some form. Throughout this pandemic, we have seen a troubling spike in anti-Asian racism. No one should be attacked in their community or targeted on the bus because of the color of their skin. Nor should places of worship be broken into and desecrated like the synagogue in Montreal.
Conservatives condemn all acts of anti-Semitism, racism, and discrimination. In a peaceful and free country like Canada, there is absolutely no place for intolerance, racism, or extremism of any kind.
Conservatives condemn all acts of anti-Semitism, racism, and discrimination. But the violence and the destruction we have seen in response are not the answer. Millions of people are protesting peacefully across the United States and in Canada. And we must always protect the rights of people who are protesting peacefully and within the law for a just cause, and separate them from those who exploit tragedies to commit acts of violence. As Mr. Floyd's brother Terrence said, violence will not bring his brother back. Instead, he has called for peace and justice and urged the crowds to educate themselves and to vote. Out of such tragedy, Mr. Speaker, that is a powerful message about how each and every one of us can use our democratic rights to effect change. In a peaceful and free country like Canada, there's absolutely no room for intolerance, racism, and extremism of any kind. We are not born believing that we are better than one another. We are all created in the image and likeness of God, and because of that, we are all equal, and infinite value exists in each and every one of us. Canada is an incredibly diverse country. Canada is a nation of immigrants that stands on the traditional territories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Waves of newcomers have come to Canada for a better life because our country is built on a rock-solid foundation of enduring values, democratic institutions, the rule of law, and fundamental and universal human rights. Tous sont venus.
They all came here because Canada is built on solid values, democratic institutions, and respect for the rule of law, and fundamental and universal human rights.
Protect these values because they are what set us apart. They allow Canada to offer what so many other countries simply cannot. There are those who say that diversity is our strength, and that is true, but it doesn't quite capture the full picture. Diversity is the result of our strength, and our strength is, and always has been, our freedom.
Our diversity is the result of our strength, and our strength is, and will always be, our freedom.
Freedom for people to preserve and pass on their cultural traditions, and the opportunity to live in peace with those around them. The freedom to live your life with equality under the law, regardless of your race or ethnic background. And the economic freedom that so many governments around the world deny their people. It is that economic freedom that ensures that hard work pays off, that gives people the ability to work towards their dreams and choose their own path in life. Together, generations of Canadians who trace their roots back to countries around the world have built Canada into truly the greatest country on earth, a true north, strong and free.
In order to ensure that we remain as a people free, we must continue to fight efforts to infringe upon our freedoms, including racism and all forms of brutality and injustice in Canada and around the world. Minorities' rights must be protected. Religious freedoms must be protected. Freedom of expression and the right to protest peacefully must be protected.
In order to ensure that we, as a people, remain free, we must continue to fight efforts to infringe upon our freedoms, including racism and all forms of brutality and injustice in Canada and around the world. Minority rights must be protected. Religious freedoms must be protected. Freedom of expression and the right to peaceful protest must be protected. As John Diefenbaker said, I am Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship in my own way, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, and free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you very much, Chair. George Floyd is not a victim of racists, but another victim of racism. At a time of crisis, when contempt causes us to be afraid of disease, for thousands of people who are taking to the streets to express their outrage, here in the political sphere, we're going to have to be cautious once again in the terms of the words we choose, because we're particularly given to interpreting the words of others. Today, our duty, and almost our only duty, is to express our solidarity and our sadness, our indignation, our anger, but also, and most importantly, to all my friends, I would say, from the wonderful Black community in Quebec, our friendship. We have to try to be heard by all humans. And every time we talk about this, there's a part of me that comes out, the kind of unofficial anthropologist that I am, reminds me that races don't exist. There are certain genetic traits that manifest themselves that create cultures. Racism expresses first and foremost through the aggression of what we presume to be the culture of others, differences that all too often, when they frighten others, are too many. We have to learn to live equally, fairly, in our diversity, which in itself is something extraordinary. Governments in the U.S. have all been racist. And racism was obviously expressed through their history and in their institutions. This has left a trace. And this is the only thing we can call systemic racism and systemic discrimination. I'm concerned that anyone who suggests that we're all collectively involved in systemic discrimination, or anyone who thinks that they are a virtuous barrier between ourselves and our victims. I don't think the Canadian government is racist. The Quebec government is racist. I don't think our municipalities are racist either. But there can be traces of odious things in our institutions. And these taint our relationships with people who are of various origins or people who have been here before us. So systemic racism does probably exist. We can't point out people, but we have to review our rules to extract what can be discriminatory. But today belongs to George Floyd. Today belongs to blacks in the U.S. Today, it belongs to blacks in Quebec and in Canada. We're not going to do politics at the doors of a funeral. We are going to allow the indignation and sadness in the U.S. express itself, and will allow those who need to speak with one voice in peace. All those who are peaceful are legitimate, and nothing that is violent is legitimate. The Prime Minister announced his desire for concrete measures to fight racism. The first measure should be to show our solidarity and friendship. And I would propose as a priority and to quickly process files for asylum seekers, particularly here from Black individuals and people of other origins as well, who expressed their desire to participate in the Quebec nation. We have the power and the duty to do so. And let's do it tomorrow. Let's do it right away. Thus, we'll be able to put our words into action, and this will make us more credible. In the meantime, our duty is to stand up for those who are afraid, stand up against those who are making them afraid. Thank you, Chair.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Merci, Monsieur le...
Thank you very much, Chair. Many Canadians were shaken to see the violence due to the murder of George Floyd. The murder of George Floyd reminds us that racism, anti-Black racism, is still very present and hits hard. Anti-Black racism is not only present in the U.S., it is here in Canada as well. Systemic racism to Blacks, Indigenous peoples, and other visible minorities is present. Racial profiling, economic inequalities, social inequality, hiring discrimination, and banalization of violence in those who are in incarceration. This is just a list amongst many others. Government after government prefer lip service to concrete action. When it's time to take action, they don't have the courage to do so or the desire to do so. People feel great pain and frustration, but we can transform this into action and into justice. We have to do more than just calling for peace. I think we have to call for justice. Justice is the only path to creating a better world.
People around the world saw the killing of George Floyd. It left all of us shaken to our core. It was chilling. The casual violence of anti-Black racism. The callous taking of another human being's life. It hurt to the core. There was pain, there was sadness, and rightly so, there is anger. There is frustration. This isn't just an American problem, this is just as much a Canadian problem as well. And something that continues to exist across our country. Anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism is real. People have suffered in violence. Indigenous people, Black people have suffered violence. and have been killed at the hands of police here in Canada. I think about Regis Korchinski-Paquette in Toronto and the calls for justice for Regis, a trans black woman who was killed in suspicious circumstances in interaction with the police. I think about Stuart Kevin Andrews, a young Indigenous man killed in an interaction with the police in Winnipeg. And the anger and the frustration is how many more people need to die before there's action? How many more speeches will be made? How many more protests need to happen before something is done? How many more times will people plead to breathe? How many more times will they plead to live? What we're talking about is basic human dignity. How many more voices have to ask, demand, plead, beg for basic human dignity? People are angry. They're feeling like enough is enough. Why do they need to keep on asking? Why do black people, why do Indigenous people need to keep on asking to be treated like a human? Why? You know what? People are done with pretty speeches, particularly pretty speeches from people in power that could do something about it right now if they wanted to. I'm standing in a hall of power, in the Chamber of Commons, with a Prime Minister who has the power to not just say pretty words, to actually do something about this. The Prime Minister of this country has the power to go beyond pretty words and pretty speeches and do something. Now, I don't have all the answers. I don't think any one person does. We're going to have to come up with those solutions together. But there are certainly some things that we do know. Martin Luther King said, "Peace is not merely the absence of tension. Peace is the presence of justice." That's what we need. We need justice. Killer Mike extolled that people should plan, plot, strategize, organize, and then mobilize. Cardi B put it this way: another way for the people to take power, and I don't want to make everything political, but it is what it is by voting. So what do we vote for? We vote for a government to take action. So I call on the Prime Minister in this Hall of Power, if the Prime Minister believes that Black Lives Matter, will the Prime Minister commit to ending racial profiling in our country? If the Prime Minister believes that Black Lives Matter, will the Prime Minister commit to ending the over-policing of black bodies? If the Prime Minister truly believes that Black Lives Matter, will the Prime Minister commit to ending the over-incarceration of black people in this country? Now, if the Prime Minister truly believes that Black Lives Matter, will he commit to ensuring that there's race-based data to make better decisions? Will he commit to ensuring that there's access to education, to health resources? The Prime Minister has the power to do all these things right now. The Prime Minister simply needs to get it done. If the Prime Minister truly believes that Indigenous lives matter, then similarly, the Prime Minister must commit today to ending the racial profiling of Indigenous people, the over-policing of Indigenous people, and the over-incarceration of Indigenous people. If the Prime Minister truly believed that Indigenous lives matter, the Prime Minister could stop taking Indigenous kids to court. The Prime Minister could stop delaying the action on the calls for justice for the murdered, missing, and Indigenous women and girls. If the Prime Minister believed that Indigenous lives matter, he could ensure that there's clean drinking water, access to justice, and education, and housing right now. People are angry because they're frustrated and done with pretty words. People are angry because they're done with pretty speeches from people in power who could do something about it right now. People don't want peace. They don't want an absence of tension. People want the presence of justice. People want justice. People deserve justice. People need justice, and justice is what people will get. Nothing less will do. Thank you.
The Honourable The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is indeed a difficult day. It's a difficult week. It's been difficult weeks. I stand here and want to begin by acknowledging we're all on the traditional territory of the Algonquin peoples, and again to say miigwech. Because on a day like this, when we're focusing on something so painful that it really is beyond partisanship and should bind us together as a people that say we cannot tolerate racism, not in this country, but we know it's here. As Prime Minister just said, la racisme n'a jamais sa...
Racism has no place here.
We know it's living with us. So we are facing in this pandemic two dangerous, invisible viruses. One is Corona-19, and the other one we've tolerated far too long, which is race-based hatred, hate speech, and anti-Black racism. And yes, Black Lives Matter. I want to just do nothing but chant it in this place till we all stand together and say, Black Lives Matter. What we're seeing in the murder of George Floyd, exactly as my colleague from the Bloc Québécois said, pas une victime, mais un autre, une autre.
Not a victim, another victim. Victims after victims after victims. We must not forget their names.
A man was killed where his last words were, I can't breathe. Was in 2014. Was Eric Garner. His mother did interviews this week. Imagine what she's going through as George Floyd dies, also on video, saying, I can't breathe. And the people who are stopping him from breathing, his killers, are the police. In the case of Eric Garner, the police were fired but never charged. George Floyd's murder, at least there's one killer who's been charged, but it doesn't do anything to ease the pain, nor does it, as my friend from the NDP has said, nor does it quench the thirst for justice, because that's what people are crying out for. They're crying out for justice. And the names just keep cascading. I had to look it up. I thought, when was it that poor young man who was jogging was murdered by the father and son in the pickup truck? Ahmaud Arbery, murdered by a retired policeman and his son out in their pickup truck in February. That's when it was. Breonna Taylor in Louisville, murdered in her own home in Louisville. That's how they pronounce it there. Murdered in her own home by cops who thought she might have drugs there. They searched and she didn't. What on earth allows this to keep happening over and over again? I looked at a site called Just Security, and I thought these words from reporter Mia Bloom, who happens to be Canadian, were pretty clear of what puts you at risk of death in the United States of America, but also Canada. Quote, driving while Black, jogging while Black, reporting while Black, bird watching while Black, selling lemonade while Black can get you killed. And the killers, far too often, are wearing a uniform. And I want to go back to the words reporting while Black, because this is something else we've seen in the last 4 days that we've never seen before, which is the deliberate targeting of reporters by police. Over 100 reporters have been injured in the United States in the last 4 days. One woman lost her eye. These are serious injuries. Sometimes reporters get in the way of riots and whatnot, but this is different. This is another element altogether. And it seems in this place, when we have speeches and pretty words to denounce racism, that we do it in a kind of a cycle. So after Colton Bushy's murder, we talked about anti-Indigenous racism. We talked about the threat to our Indigenous brothers and sisters across this country who also face racism on a daily basis. We talk about the fact that they are disproportionately in our prisons. Just within the last day, the report came down on the killing of Dale Culver in Prince George at the hands of the Prince George RCMP. This Indigenous young man was 35 years old, pepper sprayed till he couldn't breathe. There will be charges in this case. That's the recommendation that just came down. But we kind of go through sequential moments where we can say, Islamophobia is not okay. 6 Muslims at prayer in Quebec City were murdered, we can all stand up and say we denounce Islamophobia. Or we can denounce anti-trans violence against individual trans people who are murdered. We denounce anti-Semitism when we see a scrawled anti-Semitic graffiti on the door of an Ottawa rabbi's home. We denounce it. But can we get to the root of it? Anti-Asian racism. We're seeing it on the increase, as the Honourable Leader of the Conservative Party mentioned in recent days. We're seeing all this happen, and we want to be good allies. We want to be a good ally to the family of Regis Korchinski-Paquette. We want to be a good ally. I'm a woman of privilege. I got it by the mere random accident of birth. I was born to white parents. Privilege is being white. We have to study our privilege. We have to acknowledge our privilege, and we have to know, as the Prime Minister said, we're not perfect, but it doesn't give us a free pass to ignore that we have to stand up. We have to speak out. I'm sitting so close to my friend here, our minister, Ahmed Hussein. I say your name out loud, but your tweets brought me to tears. That this fine man faces racism in his own riding, that his 3 beautiful black boys have people turn away or clutch their purse, or they're a little worried when the kids are around. It sounds exactly what the Prime Minister just called the microaggressions that many of us may not even see. So we can look at our own conduct and our own behavior. So in looking at these things, there's something I want to say. We look at all these things that are happening and we wonder, what can we do about it? When you see a bully, when you hear hate speech, we have to speak up. We have to speak out. And we have to say that the President of the United States is fomenting hatred and violence, and it's shameful and shocking that he would grab a Bible. They cleared peaceful protesters on a Washington street with tear gas so that Donald Trump could pose with a Bible in front of an Episcopal church. The Episcopal Bishop of Washington had this to say, because she's a good ally. In no way do we support the President's incendiary response to a wounded, grieving nation. In faithfulness to our Savior, who lived a life of nonviolence and sacrificial love, we align ourselves with those seeking justice for the death of George Floyd. That's what we must do in this place. We must acknowledge and speak up for justice for the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, where the report languishes a year later. We must stand up for justice, and we must examine something very worrying. The US FBI warned in 2006 that white supremacist groups were targeting police forces and joining them. If we're looking for real actions, things we can do in this place, I call on us to have an inquiry and an examination to root out white supremacist groups in Canada and identify them for what they are, a terrorist threat in our midst, and make sure they're not in our police forces. Because if there's one thing scarier than a white supremacist with a gun, it's a white supremacist with a gun in uniform. Please, God, there are things we can do. Please, God, we love each other, take care of each other, regardless of the color of our skin. Pray for the United States of America. It's a country being ripped apart. And the ripping and the tearing is done by people who should at this very time be consoling and leading and inspiring. Pray. Pray for Canada. Pray for each and every one of our beautiful black baby girls, baby boys, the Indigenous baby girls and baby boys, the Asian kids, wherever you look, reach out and be a good ally. Stand up and say, with my body, I get between you and the cops. We have to be good allies. Right now, they're just pretty words. But thank you for listening.
Nous allons maintenant procéder à la présentation.
We will now move to presenting petitions for a maximum of 15 minutes.
Members that any petition presented during the meeting of the special committee must have already been certified by the clerk of petitions. Et pour les députés qui participent.
And for members participating in person, we ask them to drop the signed petition off on the table once the petition has been presented. Presenting petitions.
Member, Mr. Manley, Nanaimo Ladysmith. Go ahead, Mr. Manley.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's difficult to follow that set of speeches. I've got a petition here on a serious issue dealing with plastic pollutions. It creates a major impact on aquatic life, but also on human health. It's estimated that 74,000 to 121,000 microplastic particles are ingested per person every year. And a recent study shows that each washing cycle, 120,000 to 730,000 microfibers are shed from clothes and go directly into wastewater, and many of these microfibers are synthetic and therefore microplastics. Washing machines' discharge filters are currently available on the market and greatly reduce the amount of microfibers being released into wastewater and thus the environment. And so this petition is calling upon the government to legislate the requirement of all new washing machines to have discharge filters as of 2021 and provide incentives to all residents of Canada to install discharge filters on current washing machines. Thank you.
Presenting petitions, the Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise again today to table a petition signed by Canadians who are concerned about Bill C7. Given the fact that we've seen the assisted living homes in this country and the devastation in particularly Ontario and Quebec, these petitioners are asking for the government to look into assisted living and not assisted dying. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Presenting petitions, the Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to rise to present a petition today from a number of constituents calling for the government to act to uphold the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Commission on the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. The call is to respect the Wet'suwet'en territory and to dismantle RCMP exclusion zones. This petition came some time ago, Mr. Speaker. Some of these issues have been dealt with. Particularly pleased to note that the nation-to-nation talks called for by petitioners between the Wet'suwet'en Nation and federal provincial governments has taken place. And I would take this moment, if I may, to thank the honourable ministers involved in that effort. Thank you.
That will conclude presenting petitions. Just a reminder to members who have presented petitions here in person in the House, if they could be so kind as to bring their petition document to the table, that would be most appreciated. We'll now go to statements by members for a period not exceeding 15 minutes. And just a reminder, members have been asked to do their best to keep their declarations, their members' statements to a maximum of 1 minute. So we'll now we'll start statements by members, and we'll start with Mr. Weiler, West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country. Mr. Weiler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I continue to be amazed by how the communities throughout my riding have stepped up to support our most vulnerable at a time of crisis. In many ways, it has brought our communities closer together, even while staying physically distant. Nowhere is this more true than on the Sunshine Coast. Dedicated individuals immediately and organically mobilized the Sunshine Coast Community Task Force to coordinate local government, nonprofit, and business efforts to provide critical services to the community. Social enterprises banded together to form the Sunshine Coast Food Service Response, which provides ready-made meals and donates to food banks, while Persephone Brewing and others deliver groceries to at-risk customers both on the coast and on isolated islands. 101 Brewing and Distilling and Broonwood Distillery quickly retooled their business to supply much-needed hand sanitizer to local hospitals and other frontline workers. COVID-19, like all crises, has highlighted true leadership in our society, and I'm grateful for what they and all of our healthcare workers do every day to get us through this.
The Honourable Member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner, Mr. Motz.
Chair, this Prime Minister and his Cabinet have shown they are unwilling to put the protection and safety of Canadians ahead of political interests. They themselves are the greatest source of disinformation in this country. The Prime Minister told Canadians you can buy a gun without a license. Either purposefully or because of ignorance, he left out the fact that doing so is a criminal offence with a 5-year prison sentence. Our Minister of Public Safety said he wouldn't target hunters, but then he went ahead and banned numerous bolt-action hunting rifles and made owning a shotgun a criminal offense. They have weakened the ability to protect our border, they have ignored our rampant drug crisis, and they have weakened sentences for serious crimes, all while saying they take these issues very seriously. Today, they tell us they are banning a new liberal-invented type of firearm, a military-style assault rifle. It's time to be honest with Canadians. The Liberals would rather make you afraid of hunters, farmers, and sport shooters than deal with the real issues like drugs, gangs, illegal smuggling, and crime. Thank you.
We'll now go to Ms. Sgro, the Honourable Member for Humber River Black Creek. Ms. Sgro, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is in our most difficult moments where we truly see stunning displays of human spirit and generosity. And on that note today, I wish to recognize the work of the Humber River Hospital in my riding of Humber River Black Creek and to congratulate them on the success of their Humber Frontline Support Fund and PPE drive. Not only have they been on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, keeping our residents safe and healthy, but thanks to the generosity of those both in my riding and beyond, the Humber River Hospital has raised over $1 million and received over 400,000 pieces of personal protective equipment. This will be invaluable to the hospital as they continue to work with us and fight the good fight to keep us all healthy. Thank you to all those brave workers at the hospital, and thank you to those generous individuals who have donated to this important cause. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Maintenant, j'invite l'honorable député.
We'll now go to the member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue, Mr. Lemire. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor for me to tell you today about a brave warrior, Stéphane Lavoie. He made the choice to say thank you to life. For several years, he used his battle with cancer to seek out improvements in oncology care and services, especially in isolated regions. As the mayor of his municipality, he died yesterday. I'd like to offer my sincere condolences to his wife, Annabelle, and the entire family, especially his daughter, Astrid, who's only 20 months old. He was a visionary, a source of inspiration for us all, and to my eyes, he was a loving and committed father. I'm also thinking about the people of Presiac. He leaves them behind. When I spoke to him the first time, he said, I hope that, and this is something that I hope all will remember here, when we make our decisions, we must have our children in mind. Stéphane, we won't forget you.
Mont-Royal.
The Honourable Member for Mont-Royal.
It is with great sadness that I rise today to pay tribute to Tristan Roy after his tragic passing exactly 2 weeks ago. Natif de Saint-Fabien-sur-Mer.
Born in Saint-Fabien-sur-Mer, Tristan became a pillar of the Mount Royal community in 1997 when he purchased the former Journal de Montréal. The oldest newspaper in the region, the venerable TMR Post, ceased operations. Tristan registered the name and rebaptized it Poste de Mont-Royal.
Truly bilingual newspaper, ensuring that TMR residents could receive their news in both French and English. His editorials and views on local issues carried enormous weight. And I join Mayor Philippe Roy and all of the members of the Town Council in offering our sincere condolences to Tristan's wife Anne-Marie, daughter Ariel, and son Lancelot. We all consider Tristan to be a friend, an example of what a good journalist and editor should be and could be. He will be sorely missed. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Beauce.
The Honourable Member for Beauce, Mr. Lowe. Mr. Chair, people from the Beauce region, in case you didn't already know, are proud. Just think about Marie-Philippe Poulin, who was named the best female hockey player in the world. Anthony Leclerc from Notre-Dame-des-Pins, who said that growing up in the Beauce region helped him in the NFL. And Guillaume Couture from Sainte-Marie, who made his mother very proud on Les Chefs, a TV show last night. And what about industries like RevTech, Puri Hayes, that have invented robots for decontamination, with initiatives like Buy Local that we have seen put forth by the Chamber of Commerce, or Buy in the Beauce region from the St. George Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Chair, the only thing I can say to my fellow citizens is thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for being faithful to your habits, for rolling up your sleeves to help your neighbors. Thank you for being proud. Thank you for being from the Beauce.
For Don Valley East, Ms. Ratansi. Ms. Ratansi, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, our government has shown leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic by ensuring that Canadians remain safe and get the financial assistance they need. 8 million Canadians are receiving the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. The Canada Emergency Business Account and the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy ensures that the economy is ready to start up post-pandemic. Seniors receive top-ups to the OAS and GIS, and families the child care benefit. All these measures are helping thousands of seniors and low-income families in my riding of Don Valley East. The feedback from my regular virtual town halls has also helped to fine-tune many of the programs. Many Canadians have shown generosity during this crisis. I want to particularly thank Sarvana Bhavan and Happy Pops for donating food and frozen treats to our superhero frontline workers at local hospitals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now go to the honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge, Mr. Sobera. Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, even though this year's festivities for Italian Heritage Month will be done differently, the same spirit and vitality will exist throughout virtual events happening across the country. Virtual events that have seen the generosity of Italian Canadians raise over $1 million to help Italy during COVID-19. Today, June 2nd, Italian citizens celebrate the founding of the modern-day Italian Republic. Buona festa della Repubblica a tutti. Durante il mese del patrimonio italiano possiamo festeggiare la nostra cultura e i contributi dei nostri italo-canadesi. Mr. Speaker, the Italian-Canadian story remains one of passion, an adopted homeland filled with hard work, sacrifice, and optimism. Generations of Italian Canadians have contributed much to shape the inclusive and generous Canada we know today. C'est notre diversité qui fait notre force.
Our diversity is our strength, and I'm proud to be an Italian Canadian.
Let's all join together in proudly celebrating Le Mois Patrimoine Italien. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now go to the honourable member for Calgary Skyview, Ms. Sahota. Ms. Sahota, go ahead. I just have to unmute your audio there, Ms. Sahota. Give that a try.
Is this better?
There we go. Yep, got you there now. Okay.
Mr. Chair, as communities begin to ease restrictions, I remain mystified that according to this government, Parliament is not an essential service. If it were up to the Prime Minister, he would not have to answer to anyone. That is not how democracy works. We are in the opposition and have been long calling for a return of Parliament, which would be possible while still maintaining public health guidelines. Canadians deserve to be represented in the House of Commons by the elected member of Parliament. While the work we do in our constituencies is incredibly important, it is equally as important to bring those voices back to Ottawa, to debate, to question, and to hold the government to account. This is fundamental to the role of an elected representative. The role of the opposition is crucial now more than ever, when billions of dollars are being spent with little oversight. Our role as Member of Parliament is to uphold our democracy and to be present. This is the greatest pandemic in our lifetime. Now is not the time to hide behind a podium. If this government was doing the best job for Canadians, they would not need to hide. Thank you.
Now go to the honourable member for Brampton East, Mr. Sidhu. Mr. Sidhu, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a moment to highlight recent displays of generosity in my riding of Brampton East. This is just a small sample of the many individuals and organizations who have stepped up across Canada. Khalsa Aid has been providing food supplies with the help of Sprenza Banquet Hall, who has graciously provided the space to run a province-wide campaign out of Brampton East. Care for Cause has sent hundreds of prepared meals on a weekly basis to Good Shepherd to lessen their load. Navaraj Brar at PharmaSave has offered free care packages to healthcare workers and hand sanitizers to the Peel Regional Police. Ajla Salon and Spa partner with Global Medic to help deliver over 10,000 pounds of food to local food banks. I would also like to point out the heroic efforts of our truck drivers, taxi drivers, grocery store clerks, nurses, doctors, paramedics, and countless other frontline heroes. We see you, and we are endlessly grateful for the bravery you display each and every day. Thank you to everyone in Brampton East who has stepped up for their neighbor in their time of need. You are setting a great example of the kind of progress we can make as Canadians when we come together and support each other. I am truly honored to represent you in Ottawa.
Now go to the honourable member for Halton Hills, Mr. Chong.
Mr. Chair, the House of Commons is shut down. Let's be clear. This is not the House of Commons. It's a committee where only statements, petitions, and questions are allowed. No power to introduce motions, to test confidence, to vote. This government came to office promising greater democracy, but they broke their promise on electoral reform. They tried to give PMO the control over this House in Motion 6, and yesterday's report confirms that they rigged the leaders' debate in their favor in the last election. And now they've shuttered Parliament. Parliament sat through 2 world wars, the October crisis, and previous pandemics, and it survived the test. But not now. The people's representatives need to sit. The people need their representation. Parliament and this House of Commons, with its full powers, needs to reopen, and it needs to reopen now.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Chair, these past few months have been tremendously difficult for so many Canadians. Sickness, losing loved ones, job losses, economic hardships, loneliness, and isolation. The pandemic has taken its toll on so many. It is in these times of suffering and adversity that we have seen Canadians coming together to support each other, and that brings us hope. Mosques, churches, synagogues, and gurdwaras have all answered the call to help their communities, whether it's providing meals to the hungry, clothing for the cold, or technology for those who need it most. These actions are true reflections of the kindness and generosity that Canadians are known for. While there are so many groups, too many groups to mention them all, I want to thank Vikas Sharma and Care for Cause out of Brampton for the meals they have been providing their community in that area and across the GTA. This group and thousands of others like it across the country are working tirelessly to ease the suffering of others and help those in need. Thank you, and God bless all the volunteers.
Now we'll go to the honourable member for Winnipeg Centre. Ms. Gazan, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in honor of Indigenous History Month to speak truth about a history of racism in Canada that was built on the wrongful dispossession of lands from Indigenous people, controlled through the use of police state violence that has resulted in a loss of life, freedom, respect, and dignity. Even today, we continue to observe this reality in my very own city, where we witnessed the killing of 3 Indigenous youth by police in a span of 10 days this past April. This is not a coincidence. We have statistics, we have research, and we have stories of loved ones lost. We know it, and we see it in our lives every day. We need to address police violence throughout this country. Canadians are rising from coast to coast, demanding this of all of us and sending a clear message that we must address systemic racism in all of its forms to ensure justice for all. There will never be reconciliation.
Alors, la prochaine députée, l'honorable députée.
The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Ms. Vignola. Mr. Chair, Canada Post is not delivering the goods, literally. Yet mail delivery is an essential service. Even more so today because everything's being done online, even by local. The current crisis can explain this in part because of the backlog, or can explain the backlog in part, but also because Canada Post forgot to transition to the 21st century and was outsmarted where others made millions. Their platform isn't efficient, and that's why today they're delivering more packages but losing money. There's something we need to make note of here. Immediately, Canada Post must fix the delays, and to achieve that, it needs government assistance. Post Canada must hire more staff. And they need a signed collective agreement. For 2.5 years, Canada Post has been waiting. Perhaps a bonus for essential workers would also be a good idea. May I reiterate, mail delivery is an essential service. It's high time. We recognize the importance of this.
Correct. It will now go to Calgary Centre. The honourable member for Calgary Centre, Mr. McLean. Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, the prospects in Canada's oil field are bleak in the near term. Capital spending forecasts and drilling activity has sunk to a 49-year low. This is a result of the temporary collapse in demand for our most valuable commodity and the one that contributes the most to our GDP, our balance of trade, and whose taxes support the social programs Canadians enjoy. $108 billion in GDP, $8 billion per year in government revenues, $77 billion in trade surplus. It is a rude blow to hardworking professionals who have soldiered past negligent government policies that have left a stain on another generation of Western Canadians. We're talking about an industry here directly employing over 200,000, including 11,000 Indigenous Canadians. We're talking about an industry that contributes 75% of Canada's investment in clean technology. But Canada's resource industry will still be resilient. Bad policy cannot permanently erase the work, the hope, and the pride of forward thinkers and doers and their efforts to continue building a great country. Thank you.
Now go to the honourable member for Winnipeg South, Mr. Duguid. Mr. Duguid, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I want to give a special thank you to the healthcare workers at Victoria General Hospital who are serving patients in our community here in Winnipeg South. Every day, doctors, nurses, and staff work selflessly to take care of those in our community who need it most. Whether it's by keeping seniors connected with their families using iPads or making sure that patients go home with a special care package, staff at the Vic are doing extraordinary work to make this difficult time just a little bit easier. I would also like to give a big shout out to our wonderful small businesses in Winnipeg South who continue to show their appreciation by preparing meals for the hardworking staff at the Vic. Mr. Speaker, folks in our community continue to show what it means to be exemplary Canadians, and it is a great honor to represent them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That ends our period for member statements. We're now going to move on to questions to ministers.
Monsieur le Président.
Chair, long-term care personnel for seniors have shown great courage and commitment. François Legault asked the military that's current in helping out to stay until October. The Prime Minister refused. I'd like him to tell us why they cannot stay. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, like all Canadians, I am deeply grateful to the extraordinary work that our Canadian Armed Forces has done in Quebec and in Ontario. We've seen this with the reports that they've shared. The situation was even worse than we had feared, and the work they're doing is extraordinary. We're going to continue to support, and we know that this is not a long-term solution, so we're going to work with Quebec to find the best long-term solution.
Now that Bell Canada has decided to partner with Ericsson to deliver its 5G network, the Liberals will undoubtedly ban Huawei. But the Liberal inaction on Huawei is just another example of this government's weak leadership. Instead of deciding for himself a year ago, the Prime Minister is forcing the business community to make the decision for him. Why couldn't the Prime Minister have shown some backbone and banned Huawei a year ago?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our approach every step of the way has been to listen to experts, to work with allies, to listen to the Council of our security and intelligence community that has been looking into this issue. We know we need to make sure that Canadian businesses, Canadians, Canadian infrastructure are protected at the same time as we remain competitive in the world. That has guided our approach on this from the beginning.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, is that it hasn't. The former Public Safety Minister, Ralph Goodale, promised in this House over a year ago that an answer on Huawei would be coming, and here we are, June 2nd, 2020, and they still haven't made a decision. But on another topic, Mr. Speaker, the President of the Treasury Board wrote to Cabinet last week and said that transparency is important even in a time of crisis. Well, I guess the Minister of Infrastructure didn't get that letter. She's refusing to tell us how much of a bonus she gave to the departing head of the Infrastructure Bank. At a time when Canadians are struggling, it is disgusting that the Liberals are paying out bonuses to someone who accomplished nothing. Can the Prime Minister have a little respect for taxpayers and tell us exactly how much of a bonus the CEO of the Infrastructure Bank received?
Back to the Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the mandate of the Infrastructure Bank is to find innovative ways to finance some of Canada's biggest infrastructure projects by leveraging private capital. Remuneration range of the former CEO has been in the public domain for more than 2 years. The opposition is looking backwards. We're moving forward. The bank is moving into its next phase of development, now under the leadership of the new board chair, Michael Sabia, and will play an important role in the recovery when the time comes.
Back to Mr. Scheer.
Well, Mr. Speaker, only to a Liberal would an innovative approach to building infrastructure mean building absolutely nothing. The CEO of an infrastructure bank who accomplished 0 completed infrastructure projects should not be receiving a bonus. Now, I didn't ask a question about the remuneration. I didn't ask a question about the salary. This individual received a bonus. How much was that bonus?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, the remuneration range of the former CEO has been in the public domain for more than 2 years. In regards to further payments, we do not comment on personal HR and financial information of individuals in government.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, again, I did not ask about the remuneration. I asked about the bonus. The Canadian Infrastructure Bank was a Liberal scheme designed to protect the investment of private investors and put all the risk onto taxpayers. And even with that model, do you know how many projects they completed? 0. And yet the individual in charge of that received a bonus from this Prime Minister. Apparently, to the Liberals, he was doing a good job. Now, they might try to claim that it's arm's length and they can't divulge this information, but we know that Minister Champagne personally intervened in the decision regarding the bonus of the Infrastructure Bank CEO. So, simple question, how much did that individual receive?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, 5 years ago when we first got elected, we had to turn around the underinvestment that Stephen Harper's Conservatives have made in infrastructure across the country. Even during the depths of the 2008 recession, the investments they made were for things like doorknobs and signs, and they went into debt and didn't show people have anything to show for it. We're going to continue to move forward on historic investments in infrastructure to build up this country, and we're using innovative means like the Infrastructure Bank to do that.
Now, the Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Order. Chair, thank you. Well before 1867, there was what became Quebec, Acadia, and the roots of what became later on the provinces of Canada and Quebec. So we can infer that Canada is the product of its provinces, and these are not the product of Canada. So I'd like the Prime Minister to read his answer to this question. Who is paying for the health transfers to provinces? The Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, we have a country that has several levels of government that work together to serve Canadians. Canadians at a time of crisis and when times are good, accept that their government works together to provide services and the care that they need, and that's exactly what we're doing. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. I'd like to remind the Prime Minister that they have asked for increased and additional health transfers. And, Chair, who is paying for the very meager benefits that are being offered to seniors in Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, we have worked with Quebec and the other provinces to ensure that we are investing in health transfers. We've invested $500 million in transfers because of the COVID crisis recently, and we're going to continue to work with them in the long term. But for the time being, we are working on the emergency that we are facing. Mr. Blanchet. Chair, who is paying for the wage subsidy program? And the Conservatives have backed away from it, but who's paying for the wage subsidy that is going to go into the Liberal Party's coffers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, since the beginning of this crisis, we have invested to protect jobs and workers. Accountants, HR managers, people at the reception. We are ensuring that people in all sorts of jobs and all types of organizations can keep their employment. Mr. Blanchet. Inaudible for the interpreter. It's nice to know that now they're a bit richer and that companies that are threatened of closing their doors, well, who's going to pay for the company that submitted a bid? Probably a multinational company, a foreign company, probably in 2021. Well, we're allowed to do this in Quebec and Canada. Who's going to pay for this gift to a private company that's going to do the job that the government of Canada should be doing? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, we are in a crisis. We are trying to help workers and Canadians with measures such as the CERB and the wage subsidy, such as the assistance we're providing to a company. We're going to continue to do what we need to do to help workers across this country throughout this crisis so that we can get out of it together. I had the impression that during a crisis, civil society turns to the state to find solutions. But I've noted that in the current case with the money, roughly 20% comes from Quebec. They take this money and they give it to the private market, probably foreign. And when the first wave will be over, well, is the Prime Minister telling us that he can't do his work? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, the work that Canadians expect of our government is to watch out for their health and to ensure our economic health. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are here for workers. We are here for families, for our seniors, for our students. We're going to continue to be here throughout this pandemic and when our economy rebounds. That's what Canadians expect from us, and we'll be there. You have roughly 45 seconds, Mr. Blanchet. I understand, Chair, that the Prime Minister is outsourcing part of his responsibilities with taxpayer money in the run-up to the next elections. Is that the only explanation he can give about his current role to protect us during this crisis? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, across the country, including in Quebec, there are people who are worried about their jobs because of this pandemic. We are here to protect them with the wage subsidy, or to protect organizations and companies, to ensure that people receive a paycheck to help their families and to pay their rent. That is the priority that people were expecting from our government.
Mr. Singh, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. People are fed up with pretty words from people in power. The Prime Minister has the power to do something about the anti-Black racism that Canada is faced with. Will the Prime Minister end racial profiling in Canada against Black people once and for all?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government was the first government to recognize anti-Black racism, systemic discrimination, unconscious bias, and take concrete actions for it in the context of the decade, the UN decade of people of African descent, but also in the context of a country that stands up for human rights and protects everyone. We have made significant steps forward, but there is so much to do, and I look forward to working with all members in this House to do just that.
To the Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
I did not hear an answer. Will the Prime Minister end the racial profiling of Black people in Canada?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our justice system unfairly targets in many situations racialized Canadians, including Indigenous Canadians and Black Canadians. We know we need to improve our justice system and rates of incarceration. We will work on.
And back to Mr. Singh.
Will the Prime Minister end the over-policing and over-incarceration of Black and Indigenous people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, systemic discrimination means that people of color are at greater risk of being incarcerated than others, at facing negative outcomes in the justice system. We know we need to work on all the determinants of that, and we will work as a country together.
Back to Mr. Singh.
Will the Prime Minister make sure Canada is collecting disaggregated data on the impacts of COVID-19 on racialized people, particularly Indigenous and Black people?
Prime Minister Trudeau.
Mr. Speaker, not just on COVID-19, but on all ranges of data. We've made investments over the past years to Statistics Canada so that they are better able to collect data in a disaggregated fashion. We need to know what is happening within vulnerable communities. Disaggregated data will help, and we're working with provinces on the COVID-19 data.
Back to Mr. Singh.
We know that people are frustrated with anti-Black racism. People are also incredibly frustrated with anti-Indigenous racism. Will the Prime Minister commit to ending the over-incarceration, over-policing, and racial profiling of Indigenous people?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I referred to that in an earlier answer. Yes, we need to work to ensure that the rates of incarceration for Indigenous people, for racialized Canadians are reduced. There are many measures that we're working on to move forward to make our justice system fairer and to reduce systemic discrimination and eventually to eliminate it.
Back to Mr. Singh.
Well, here are two specific things we can do. I asked the Prime Minister, will he commit to ending stop taking Indigenous kids to court? And will the Prime Minister stop delaying the response to the murdered, missing Indigenous women and girls' calls for justice?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow is the anniversary of the end of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls inquiry. We have been working over the past year with partners on the ground to formulate the measures and the response that needs to move forward. Many of those partners over the past months have been engaged in keeping their communities safe and working hard on that, and that has delayed the putting out of the report.
Back to Mr. Singh.
Will the Prime Minister stop taking Indigenous kids to court when it comes to Indigenous child welfare?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we agree that we need to compensate kids who have and Indigenous peoples who have suffered harm at the hands of our child and family services over the past decades, and we will do that.
Back to Mr. Singh.
Will the Prime Minister commit, instead of just pretty words, but real action, ensuring that all Indigenous communities have access to clean drinking water?
Prime Minister Trudeau.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP needs to know that we have eliminated over 80 long-term boil water advisories through our work over the past years, and we are on track to eliminating all of them on time by next spring. Mr. Speaker, this is something we committed to Canadians, and we are doing.
30 seconds left. Mr. Sen, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister needs to speak to Indigenous communities who say a completely different reality. They are not having access to clean drinking water, and communities are going off the list to only return back onto the list of boil water advisories. Will the Prime Minister commit to ensuring all Indigenous communities have clean drinking water?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that was a commitment we made to Canadians and a commitment we are keeping. The member opposite continues to talk as if there has been no progress made. There has been significant progress made. We are on track to eliminating those boil water advisories, and it would be great if the members opposite talked about some good news instead of just highlighting the very real problems that are there. There are good news, there are challenging news, and we're working on those together.
Now go to the Honourable Member for Carleton, Mr. Poilievre.
What share of Canada's national debt is owed to foreign lenders?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, we continue to manage our fiscal situation in a responsible manner, and will continue to do that.
Mr. Poilievre.
How much does the Government of Canada owe to the People's Republic of China?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, we would be happy to provide information. If the member would like to send my office directly questions, I'd be happy to provide this information.
Poilievre.
It turns out I did a week ago, and they still haven't provided answers to the questions. The question in particular regarding who owns Canada's foreign-held debt. We know that roughly a third of our debt is owned by foreigners. How much of that debt is owned by lenders from the People's Republic of China?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, we'd be happy to reply to these questions directly, and we'll do so, and we'll get to it in order as we work through this crisis, making sure we focus on Canadians first.
Mr. Poilievre.
How much is owned by lenders from Saudi Arabia?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Again, Mr. Speaker, we'd be happy to provide information in this regard should the member wish to send a request directly to my office.
Mr. Poilievre.
Which I have. Mr. Speaker, moving now along to the impacts of the debt on our people. How much would a 1% increase in the effective interest rate on Canada's national debt cost Canadian taxpayers?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to manage our Treasury function responsibly, and I'd be happy to get financial calculations to the member if he'd like to send those to my office directly.
Spaliev.
All right. Mr. Speaker, we'll try a different question then. We have lower interest rates than ever before, as we're not getting any answers. We have lower interest rates than ever before, which normally means you lock in those rates for the long run. Anybody who's got a mortgage knows you lock in for the long run when rates are low. What percentage of Canada's national debt is locked in for more than 5 years?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to get this information to the member, but I would acknowledge that as we manage the Treasury function for the Government of Canada, we look at both the short term, the medium term, and the long term, and we think we've come with a responsible approach to managing the ongoing debt that we have as a country.
Spaliev.
All right. Mr. Speaker, it turns out, according to finance officials, that less than 3% of Canada's recently added debt since March is for terms of more than 5 years. Why has this minister made Canada so susceptible to future interest rate hikes by failing to lock in the $371.5 billion of new debt he's added in the last months?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to manage the Treasury function of the Government of Canada in a responsible way, making sure that we consider what debt should be issued at a short term, a medium term, and a long term, as we've been doing as the Government of Canada during our entire term and as previous governments have done as well.
Mr. Poilievre.
Canadians would be wise not to hire this minister as the mortgage broker. They're looking to get the best rate. Let's move on to the Canadian household. The average household was $200 away from insolvency before this crisis began. How many Canadians would experience bankruptcy in the next 12 months if interest rates were to rise by an effective 1 percentage point?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, again, we'd be happy to get calculations to the member, but I would make the observation that what we've been working to do during the course of this pandemic is support Canadians, support Canadian families by providing them income during a time when they don't have access to income because they're actually at home. So we think that has supported them in a very, very positive way that allows us to ensure that we will have a continuing economy when we get through this crisis.
30 seconds left, Mr. Poilievre.
And unfortunately, we will have a $1 trillion debt when this fiscal year comes to an end. How much will the finance minister try to raise taxes if interest rates on that debt rise, say, by 1%?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said to this House previously, we do not intend on raising taxes. But more importantly, what the member opposite is suggesting is that we shouldn't be investing to support Canadians. And I think that the approach we've taken, the emergency response benefit, the wage subsidy, have been particularly critical to enable Canadians to get through a very challenging time.
We are now going to proceed with Mr. Lehoux, the honourable for Beauce. Chair, my question is for the Minister of Agriculture. Day after day, I've been talking with stakeholders and witnesses at the Agricultural Committee, and the consensus is always the same. The risk management programs are not working. When will the Minister intervene and make significant changes to these programs? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. We are highly committed with our producers across the country. There are a certain number of programs that are already available, risk management programs, and I'm working with my provincial colleagues to improve them. We've also increased our contribution through various other programs for meat, pork producers and food processors as well. Mr. Lehoux, Chair. I continue to hear the same answers. Can the Minister just give me a date? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Chair. Once again, we're working regularly with producers and their representatives, with my provincial colleagues, and we are going to identify gaps and realize which sectors will need more assistance. Mr. Lehoux. Chair, the government promised to integrate its 60% share of these risk programs, and this even if the province or territory doesn't participate. Did the provinces receive this money, yes or no? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Chair. The way it works is that we're talking about the Agri Restart program, through which we've offered $50 million to pork producers, $50 million to beef producers. It's open in all provinces, but the provinces are operating this program. Mr. Lehoux. Chair, when will this transfer be made? Can the minister just give us a date? Because that's what we're asking. The Honourable Minister. Chair, I'd like to be able to give you a date, but the answer depends on each of the provinces. It's up to the provinces to implement this program. Mr. Lehoux. Chair, the minister told us that she's ready to transfer this, whether the provinces participate or not, and we're not getting an answer. Chair, how can the Minister of Agriculture plan to make significant changes to various risk management programs between now and the end of July when the government postponed the date of the provincial territorial meeting on agriculture until October? We've been meeting on Zoom for a certain period of time already, and how come this couldn't have been an option? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Chair. I've been meeting with my colleagues from the provinces every week, and I can assure you that we're cooperating closely with the provinces. And in terms of the Agri Restart program, it's the provinces that have to implement it, and they have the choice whether to provide their 40% share or not, or partial participation. But in terms of the federal government 60% contribution, our commitment is strong. Chair, if I've understood correctly, the agriculture sectors under supply management, such as egg and poultry, in my writing, have been promised compensation for quite some time. But when will this money be transferred to these producers who are working tirelessly to feed our country? The Honourable Minister. Yes, I know that there are producers, pork, egg and poultry, dairy producers that are working very hard, and our commitment for compensation because of the 3 trade deals is still firm. We're focusing on emergency programs right now, and we are going to proceed with that compensation afterwards. Mr. Liu, you have roughly 30 seconds left. Thank you, Chair. I understand that I still didn't get an answer yet. While our country is relying on greater automation, there are agricultural companies in my writing that could make certain progress, but they need reliable internet in their area. When will this be coming? The Honourable Minister. Inaudible for the interpreter. I'd like to reassure you that we recognize the importance of rural internet. Myself, I represent a rural riding, and it's an everyday challenge. We're working with our colleagues, the Minister of Innovation and the Minister of Rural Development, to accelerate progress in this respect.
To Mr. Motz. Mr. Motz. Chair, through the Minister of Public Safety, Minister Blair, how many times has the list of banned firearms changed since May 1st?
The Honourable Minister.
And my understanding is that an order in council was made on May 1st, and we have not made any changes to that order in council.
Mr. Motz.
That's untrue. How many more firearms have been added to the original prohibited list since that date?
I think
The Honourable Minister.
I suspect the member may be referring to the work that the RCMP has been doing through the Canadian Firearms Program in order to apply the Order in Council that was passed.
Before we go to Mr. Motz, I want to ask all the honourable members to make sure that they're on mute. We're getting some voices in the background. Mr. Motz, please continue.
How many 22 caliber rifles and firearms are on that ban list?
The Honourable Minister.
Yeah, just to be very clear, Mr. Speaker, the ban list includes a number of assault style rifles, including the AR-15, and I think the member may be referring to a weapon that the RCMP has identified as using an AR-15 frame, which of course...
Go back to Mr. Motz.
Again, wrong answer, Chair. How many shotguns are now on that ban list?
The Honourable Minister.
Yeah, this is a bit of confusion that was put out by the gun lobby to frighten hunters, and in fact, we did not prohibit any shotguns.
Mr. Motz.
Again, another untruth, Chair. Any airsoft guns on the prohibited list?
The Honourable Minister.
Now, another bit of mistruth and deception that was put out by the gun lobby, and in fact, there was a weapon called the Blackwater AR-15, which was a real gun which was prohibited, but the toy gun, the airsoft one, was not.
Back to Mr. Motz.
Well, that's untrue. Of some of those exact firearms that are on that list. Why are the RCMP continuing to add firearms to the prohibited list after the list was published?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very important thing that the RCMP, as the agency responsible for administering the Canadian Firearms Program, continue to do their diligence to keep Canadians safe.
Why have there been no notice given to firearm owners, retailers, or the police of the many changes to the banned firearm list?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, I think it's very important that the Canadian Firearms Program and the RCMP continue to do their important work of ensuring that Canadians are kept safe.
Mr. Motz.
How many firearms have been transferred between licensed gun owners and/or retailers since May 1st?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, I don't have that information, and as the members probably knows, records are not kept by the government or by law enforcement about the transfer of firearms that are not restricted.
How many of those
Back to Mr. Motz.
firearms have been retroactively changed to prohibited since May 1st? So the firearms that have been transferred, how many now are retroactively prohibited since May 1?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, just to be very clear, on May 1st, by order in council, we prohibited 1,500 some odd different types of firearms, all based upon a military design, and those are the weapons that are prohibited.
Mr. Motz.
Since that time, you've added almost 700 more, and none of those meets that category that you're trying to establish. If a firearm not on the original prohibited list were to have been transferred since May 1st, and now that firearm appears on that transfer or that prohibited list, are those transfers subject to criminal prosecution?
Honourable Minister.
And again, the member's asking me a question for which it is solely the responsibility of the law enforcement agency of jurisdiction, and that is their decision, not ours.
Mr. Motz.
The minister has said that the issuance of firearm licenses and transfers were stopped recently due to a printer failure. We now know that to be completely false. There was no such failure, but an ordered shutdown. Who ordered the RCMP to withhold these services from law-abiding Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, I have absolutely no knowledge of the allegation the members just made, Mr. Speaker, and so I can't really confirm or deny that actually ever happened.
Mr. Motz.
Maybe the minister needs to check with his officials and to find out who actually did the ordering. What does this minister believe to be the estimated cost of the fire confiscation plan?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, just to be very clear, there is no fire confiscation plan. We will, however, be bringing legislation forward at the very first opportunity to facilitate a buyback program that will treat Canadians who purchase these firearms fairly.
Mr. Motz.
You can't buy back something that you never owned in the first place, Mr. Speaker. These costs must include administration, price per firearm, as well as industry costs. And we know the industry costs are over $1 billion already. So if this minister doesn't know the cost, maybe he's as incompetent as our Minister of Finance. So I'm just wondering, Chair, through you, why were the law enforcement notes removed from the firearms reference table?
I just want to remind the honourable members that parliamentary language is something that we need to respect in the House and just be careful on what we say. The Honourable Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd just like to advise you and through you to this House that our purpose is to protect the lives of Canadians, and we're taking strong action to strengthen gun control. We are not influenced by the gun lobby or by gun manufacturers, only by our interest in keeping Canadians safe.
We'll now continue to Mr. Duncan. Mr. Duncan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to start off by thanking the government for listening to my proposals a couple weeks ago regarding the extension of benefits for vulnerable Canadians who may not have been able to file their income tax by this week's deadline. There are millions of relieved seniors for GIS, child tax benefit for parents, and GST that now know they have a bit of time and protection and aren't going to be cut off their benefits. I'm hoping to go 2 for 2 here today, so no pressure to the Minister of Public Safety. I want to build on the comments from Ms. Gladue, my colleague from Sarnia-Lambton last week, about family reunification between the Canadians and Americans. I have many constituents in my riding that are concerned that are caught into this. I certainly support, I think we support in this chamber, the idea of the extension for travel. However, it's now been 3 months since many spouses have seen each other that are Canadian and American. Children that are in custody arrangements have seen their parent on one side of the border or the other. After stating for months that reunifying families wasn't considered essential travel, I'm thankful that he and the Prime Minister have now said they are. Will the Minister agree that the safe and fair proposal we outlined in our letter last week, which would simply exempt spouses, children, and those with medical needs traveling back and forth with accompanying documentation, can be done so we can get people and their families back together?
The Honourable Minister.
I'd like to thank the member for what I think is a very important question, and I want to assure them I've had similar conversations with members of this House from all parties and representing all parts of the country. And we recognize the challenge that this particular policy of restricting non-essential travel has had in families, and it is not our intention and never will be our intention to separate families. And so we are working very closely with the CBSA to ensure that individuals are treated fairly. We have had, and I think I want to share this with the member and all members of this House, because there is a great deal of concern in our communities and from our provincial and territorial partners about the movement of people across our border. Any change we make to our arrangement at the border, and this will require a change by order in council, any change has to be discussed and negotiated with our provincial partners. Some of them, you may be aware, have expressed some concern, and we're addressing those concerns because we respect their concerns. But at the same time, we are working very hard, and I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to resolve this to the satisfaction of the many Canadians you and everyone else represents. Thank you.
I just want to remind the honourable members, whether asking or answering a question, please speak through the chair, not directly to the member who asked or is answering the question. Well, back to Mr. Duncan. Mr. Duncan.
We're looking at each other. It's a bad habit. But to the Minister, I appreciate the comments on that. And I will just note that the Canadian and American governments have worked with provinces to have, as we've had with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, repatriated Canadians from around the world. And there have been protocols and put in place of quarantine to allow that. There are protocols. There is a precedence. And I'm just wondering why there is the delay in acknowledging the part with families. I believe there is a precedence. I believe there is a background there. And I think we can, through order and council, whatever measure, get people back with their families. Can they explain why that needs to be any different than reunifying families as it is repatriating from other countries?
The Honourable Minister.
And again, I thank the member because this is a very important issue. It's important for us as well. And we have been working over the past couple of weeks very diligently on trying to find a resolution of this because it is never our intention to separate families. And we have all heard some very heart-wrenching concerns that have been raised. At the same time, I think it's important to work very closely, as we have done, with our provincial and territorial partners to ensure that we address the concerns that they raise. And this, we are prepared to move forward, and we're working very hard to resolve the concerns that were raised so that we can have a positive answer to those many families and we can continue
back to Mr. Duncan. Mr. Duncan.
Appreciate that for the Minister. And I just want to share the story of a constituent of mine, Mr. David Lee from Cornwall. He and his wife, Maria, have been married for a couple of years now. She's an American citizen. They spend about 5 months of the year in Texas, 5 months in Cornwall, and would generally travel about 2 months of the year. However, she couldn't come up to Canada because of the restrictions that are put in place, and it's certainly putting a strain on them. Can the Minister confirm that the three concerns we outlined in our letter are being discussed as part of a solution or a resolution as soon as possible? That spouses and long-term partners can be reunited, that children with child custody arrangements can see both their parents, and if somebody needs to travel the border back or forth for medical appointments, they can do that so they can stay with their spouse. Can you confirm all three are on the table and will be addressed?
Well, Minister.
What I can confirm is that we're working hard to make sure that we can keep families together. But I also want to reiterate, because you raise a very important point, when people do cross the border, they're still subject to the quarantine orders of public health, and that's for the protection of all Canadians. And so you mentioned traveling back and forth across the border. If the travel is deemed essential, that is an exception. But if the travel is not deemed essential, then they must go into 14 days quarantine. And that's one of the concerns that the provinces have raised with us and assurances that they have sought. We're working to provide those assurances.
Now, before we go on to the next line of questioning, I just want to remind the honourable members that we do have interpreters who are working very hard to translate from one language to the other. Alors, je vous demande de parler un...
So I would ask you to speak a little bit more slowly, please, out of consideration for our interpreters, who are doing a very good job.
To Mr. Cram. Mr. Cram.
Mr. Chair, I've had the opportunity to talk with Mr. James Bogus, CEO of the Regina Airport Authority, and he paints a grim picture. He expects the airport to be out of money by the end of the summer. Mr. Chair, the loss of the Regina International Airport would be devastating, not only to the city of Regina, but to southern Saskatchewan. The Liberal government has made a great show out of allegedly providing $330 million in assistance to airports through lease deferrals. But here's what they're not telling people. Airport lease payments are already tied to revenue and have been for many years. So when an airport's revenue goes down to zero, that means that its lease payments to the federal government go down to zero, pandemic or no pandemic. So, Mr. Chair, that means this government has done absolutely nothing to help Canada's airports. Will the government commit today to provide real assistance to Canada's struggling airports?
The Honourable Minister.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for the question. And in fact, the Minister of Transport has been working very, very closely with airports, large and small, right across the country. We have been continuing to update our responses in this rapidly evolving situation. We've been in touch with each of the airports, and we've been working very hard to help them manage through these difficult times. We know that there are some circumstances where continued operation at those smaller airports has not been possible, but wherever possible, we have done our very best to try to accommodate the very real financial challenges that these airports are experiencing.
Mr. Cram.
Mr. Chair, Canada's airports are teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, and the Liberal government's response has been to defer their lease payments, which were already based on revenue, so these deferrals are effectively meaningless. In the meantime, the U.S. government's CARES program is providing $10 billion in grants and low-interest forgivable loans to support American airports. Mr. Chair, will this government commit today to saving Canada's airports with a similar program of grants and forgivable loans?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have worked very hard and continue to do so to make sure that we provide the supports to regional airports right across this country. We know how important air transport is to such a vast country, and the tremendous work that they do, and they do support communities and they support the Canadian economy. We're going to work very closely with them to make sure that we provide the right supports to help them get through this difficult time, and because we also know how important they will be to the eventual restart of our economy. And their continued existence and success is important to that restart, and we'll work with them.
Mr. Cram.
Mr. Chair, the airport crisis goes far beyond my home city of Regina. Airports are vital to Canada's economy, providing over 200,000 jobs nationwide, paying $13 billion in wages and $7 billion in taxes. But now Canada's airports are on the brink of collapse, while this government stands idly by as airports have lost over 90% of their revenue. Last month, Joyce Carter, chair of the Canadian Airports Council, called on this government for a three-point plan for airport recovery that includes the permanent elimination of ground leases, substantive loan and bond guarantees, and a special plan to support smaller airports that provide vital supplies to rural and remote communities. Mr. Chair, can the Minister inform the committee if the government has done anything in response to the Canadian Airport Council's request?
The Minister.
Again, I thank the member for the question, and I would make the observation that all of our small and regional airports are vital to the communities that they serve. And that's why it's important that we work with them all. And so the Minister of Transport is in regular communication, and there are ongoing discussions with airport authorities, large and small, right across this country on how we can continue to support them. And there have been a number of proposals made by the industry itself and by some of the regional airports on what form that help can take. That's all part of a very important ongoing discussion. But, Mr. Speaker, I believe it is clear. Canadians need our help, and we are there for Canadians to help Canadians get back on their feet when we get through this pandemic.
Mr. Cram, we have time for a 15-second question and a 15-second answer.
Mr. Chair, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan have all started free trade negotiations with the United Kingdom. Why hasn't Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for the question. We, of course, are going to make sure that we will always act in the interest of Canadian businesses. And I want to assure Canadians that CETA continues to apply to our trade with the United Kingdom. And we will make sure that our further work will always take into account the interests of Canadian businesses. Thank you.
Nous allons maintenant continuer avec...
We'll now go to Mr. Terrien. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to know how many full-time and part-time employees work for the Liberal Party of Canada. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Chair, on a point of order, I'm not sure that this has anything to do with government management members or employees of the Liberal Party or any party of Canada. I'm not sure if that's a point of order, but I'll allow Mr. Terrien to continue. Well, he'll understand when it unfolds. I'm just, he can trust me. What I do want to know is how many people work for the Liberal Party of Canada, part-time, full-time. It's a simple question. The Honourable Minister. Several people. Mr. Terrien. Mr. Chairman, I know that dipping into government coffers with taxpayers' money is something they find very funny. We don't. The Liberal Party has taken money through the wage subsidy program. I'd like to know, it's a very simple question, how many people work for the Liberal Party of Canada? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Chairman, I don't know the exact number of employees working for the Liberal Party of Canada, but the wage subsidy is for all sectors of the economy to protect employees across the country, whether they work for a company that has seen a 30% decrease or more. 157 members know that, but no one's saying, how many people working for us? No one's asked a question like that. They're so concerned with having their hand in the cookie jar that they're not even asking the questions. Now, on May 25th, Braden Cayley, Director of Communications, said between 75 and 100 employees have received the wage subsidy under the program. Is that accurate? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Chairman, I'm very busy with our concerns, and that is protecting Canadians. That's what I'm concerned with across the country. Whether they work for or they work with a company that's lost 30% revenues. That's what's important for the economy and the country. Mr. Terrien. Okay. Let's just say 100 employees then, a nice round figure. How many of them are threatened in the Liberal Party of Canada by the pandemic? I'd like to invite honourable members to ask their questions through the chair. The Honourable Minister. Well, we will continue with our approach to support workers across the country, companies, so that there is enough funding to make it through the pandemic. Mr. Terrien, enough money for the next election campaign then. So I'd like to know how much money has been taken from the wage subsidy program, taxpayers' money, that will go into government election coffers. The Honourable Minister. With the wage subsidy, Mr. Chairman, we have a situation where we're protecting 75% income up to $847. So that's important for workers, and it's also very important for everyone else. Mr. Therrien, well, since I don't have an answer, I've got done some calculations. 100 employees at $847 per week, that equals $340,000 per month. $340,000 in taxpayers' money. And if we look at that, it's backdated to March because it's retroactive. That's more than $1 million in Liberal Party coffers. Mr. Chairman, will they continue, because now they've extended the wage subsidy, will the party continue to keep its hands in the bag there? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Chairman, the wage subsidy protects employees, and companies must ensure that the money goes to the employees. That is how we protect employees. And that will enable us to ensure that millions of Canadians are in a better position. Mr. Carrion, 30 seconds, 15 seconds. Well, look, they've already taken $1 million. So this is a twofold question. Will they be reimbursing it? That's the first question. And secondly, I hope they won't be pocketing another $1 million between now and September. Can they give me some comfort in that? The Honourable Minister, 15 seconds or less. Mr. Chairman, we're going to continue with our approach to protect employees, to protect corporations that need assistance during this crisis. We'll now take a very short break so that our employees can switch.
Parfait, nous pouvons continuer maintenant.
We can now resume.
Mr. Van Bynen. Mr. Van Bynen.
Mr. Chair, I will be splitting my time with the member for Scarborough Centre. Mr. Chair, as parliamentarians, our greatest responsibility is to keep Canadians safe. During the previous Parliament, our government made significant investments in the CBSA, the RCMP, and provided funds to provinces and territories to invest in programs that combat gun and gang violence and support our communities to provide positive alternatives for youth engagement and activities. On May 1st, our government banned assault-style weapons. This is something we pledged to do during the last federal election and something that victims, groups, law enforcement, and everyday Canadians called on for decades. But we must know but we must know that we need to take more action to keep our communities safe. Mr. Chair, I'm sure this continues to be an important issue for many communities. And can the minister tell the House and the constituents of Newmarket Aurora what further steps our government will take to keep Canadians safe?
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to begin by thanking the honourable member from Newmarket Aurora for his question and for his advocacy on behalf of the safety of his community. Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, building upon historic investments we made in the last Parliament in law enforcement dealing with guns and gangs, we took the important next step in our promise to strengthen Canada's gun control by prohibiting weapons that many in the law enforcement community, including the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, have said have no place in our communities. But, Mr. Speaker, there is much more to do. And we will build on these early steps by strengthening our work and our laws at the border, by taking steps to prevent the theft and criminal diversion of guns, and also, Mr. Speaker, by making significant investments in kids and in families and in communities where the conditions give rise to gun violence right across Canada. Mr. Speaker, we have much work to do, and we are committed to keeping Canadians safe.
The next question goes to Ms. Zaid. Ms. Zaid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in cities and towns across Canada, small businesses are the backbone of our local economies. They are also pillars of our communities. Even during these challenging times, we have seen restaurants and other businesses step up to deliver meals to frontline workers and make donations to our local food banks. So many have supported the Scarborough Health Network's Meals for Heroes program. Their leadership has been inspiring. But I have heard from many small business owners in Scarborough that are having trouble paying their commercial rents due to the sharp downturn in businesses caused by COVID-19. From dentists to small manufacturers. They are interested in how programs like the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program could help them to stay in business. But they worry these programs may not be able to help if their landlords don't participate. These small businesses are crucial to our community. Could the Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion and International Trade please explain why it is so important that the landlords participate to help small businesses make it through the pandemic, and how we are working to make this program a success, not just here in Scarborough, but across Canada?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Member of Parliament for her advocacy for the people of Scarborough Centre for this really important question. While rent is an area of provincial responsibility, helping businesses across the country is all of our responsibility. This is why we have stepped up to provide rent relief to businesses, while at the same time helping property owners maintain the rental income through this crisis. We're asking property owners to do their part in keeping small businesses and their employees to get through these challenging times and to take advantage of our forgivable loans and to help small businesses who are the hardest hit and reduce their rent by 75%. This is a win-win situation. Many landlords have already stepped up, and we salute their efforts. We will continue to do what we can to help protect and help our small businesses across Canada, coast to coast to coast. Thank you.
The next question goes to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan.
The $4 billion Canada Housing Benefit Agreement was announced in 2017. It's supposed to provide up to $2,500 per year to help families in need with their rent. We know that poverty and inadequate housing are barriers felt by even more of the Black, Indigenous, and racialized people. Can the minister tell us how many families have actually received this housing support?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for asking about this really special and unique housing benefit. We introduced the Canada Housing Benefit as part of the National Housing Strategy to help people as a bridge to permanent housing, people who are in core housing needs, people who are homeless or at the risk of homelessness. We have signed agreements with provinces. We hope all of them come to the table to sign this really important cost sharing.
Now go back to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan.
Well, it's been 2.5 years, and families in need are still waiting. Only one province has signed on, and there has been no national consultation on how such a benefit program would even be implemented. With so little federal leadership, the Canadian Alliance of Nonprofit Housing Associations has stepped up and done the work for the government. They have outlined 5 key principles to guide the implementation of the Canada Housing Benefit. Will the minister adopt those principles and get on with ensuring vulnerable families get the rental assistance they need?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is really unfortunate that the Honourable Member thinks that an investment of $55 billion and a commitment of a 10-year federal plan of leadership in affordable housing and community housing is a lack of leadership. It is quite the opposite. The Canada Housing Benefit is yet another important segment of the National Housing Strategy that will ensure that people have access to a safe, affordable place to call home. It is being signed by a number of provinces, not just one, as the Honourable Member suggests. It is up to 5 provinces that have moved on signing on to the Canada Housing Benefit.
Back to Mrs. Kwan. Mrs. Kwan.
Well, then surely he can actually tell us how many families benefited from that program. The fact is 2.5 million families are paying more than 30% of their income on rent, and they have been hit hard by this pandemic. Reciting the same message box over and over again will not get them the help that they need. Aside from going forward with a housing benefit program, will the government prioritize affordable housing stimulus spending as a key component of any post-COVID stimulus policy?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, joining with provinces and territories and providing real help to members of the community who are experiencing homelessness to have a permanent roof over their heads is real action. It's real leadership by our government as part of the Canada Housing Benefit. This is a real benefit that is going to households in core housing need, people who experience a core housing need, who need a permanent place to call home. The Canada Housing Benefit is providing real help to thousands and thousands of Canadian households. We will continue to provide that leadership in concert with provinces and territories.
We'll now go to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan.
Well, Minister, I would say that BC is still looking for the government to step up. We bought our first hotel to house the homeless for permanent housing, and the government has yet to provide any funding to them. So now the question to the Minister of Immigration. The first migrant worker died yesterday due to COVID-19. Migrant workers are warehoused in a space with no barriers between each sleeping cot. Others are housed in crowded communal bunkhouses. What action will the minister take to address this alarming situation?
Honourable Minister.
Well, I thank my colleague for the question, and I want to extend our sympathy to the temporary worker who passed away from COVID-19. And of course, we continue to support workers by ensuring that they have the accommodations and the spacing necessary to work when they are here, providing food security for all Canadians. We're also providing support to farmers to ensure that those accommodations are made. And we put in place the regulations and the rules which are necessary, and we continue to work very closely with our provincial partners as well as leaders in this sector so that we can protect workers and ensure that Canadians have access to safe and affordable food.
Ms. Kwan, there's time for a 15-second question.
Well, no one should have to endure such inhumane housing conditions and risk their lives to support their families. We rely on them for the food on the table for our families. They don't have access to health care, and they don't have a pathway to permanent residence. Will the minister do the right thing and grant migrant workers healthcare coverage and ensure that they follow up on the principle that if you're good enough to work, you're good enough to stay?
The Honourable Minister. 15 seconds.
Well, in fact, Mr. Speaker, I would clarify that temporary workers do have a pathway to permanent residence. And of course, that is an opportunity that we will continue to offer those who are ensuring that Canadians have access to healthy, safe, and affordable food. And we will continue to make the investments which are necessary to maintain a high standard of professionalism and workplace safety. And that is.
We'll now go to Mr. Arnold. Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Chair, fisheries and ocean stakeholders and coastal communities face unprecedented threats from the COVID-19 crisis, and they deserve the support of all levels of government, including their own MPs. Yesterday, the Liberal and NDP MPs banded together to restrict the Standing Committee on Fisheries and Oceans to just 4 hours of sitting in the summer months. Conservatives are ready to put the hours to support Canadians, while Liberals and NDP refuse to do the work. When will the Prime Minister tell his MPs to get back to work for the Canadians that need their support?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we all agree that committees are making an extremely important work. That's why committees are meeting regularly. But I would like to remind my colleagues that the committees are masters of their own destiny. They make their own decisions, not the government.
The Honourable, Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Chair, it took months for DFO to realize that Fisk Passage on the Fraser River was blocked at Big Bar. Then it took them 7 more months to tender a contract to clear the blockage. Now, that contract has tripled from $17.6 million to over $52.5 million without a single communications post from the minister's office. The original contract amount was clearly inadequate. So who ordered it?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, since we found out about the landslide at Big Bar, our government has been extremely active in making sure that we can make sure that the salmon have a passage through. We know how critically important the salmon is to the Fraser River as well as to the Indigenous communities along the Fraser. We're working diligently to make sure that we get that passage cleared. So far, we've made significant progress, but we know there's more work that needs to be done. That's why we'll continue to work with the Indigenous communities, with the province, and make sure that these...
Back to Mr. Arnold. Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Chair, the Fisheries Minister's mandate letter from November of last year directed her to make new investments in fighting invasive species. Half a year later, and the Minister has failed to deliver. Canadians on the front line of prevention wrote the Minister, and when they got a response, 5 months later, it was devoid of any help. This government's delays are hurting Canada's fight against invasive species. So when will the minister follow her Prime Minister's directive and make new investments in the fight against invasive species?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question. Invasive species are a real challenge for our waterways. We know that a lot more has to be done. We're working diligently to find the answers to deal with some of the problems that we're seeing from invasive species. We are continuing to monitor situations in waterways. I am committed to making sure I meet my commitments within my mandate letter, and I will have more to say on that soon.
Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Chair, the list of hunting and sport shooting firearms banned by Minister Blair's order in council continues to grow. What other hunting firearms does he plan to ban?
The Honourable Minister.
Just to be very clear, Mr. Speaker, the weapons that we have prohibited are weapons that were not designed for hunting or sport shooting. They were designed for soldiers to use in combat. As law enforcement leaders right across the country have said many times, they have no place in our community. We agree. We've prohibited.
Back to Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Chair, I continue to hear from constituents in the North Okanagan Shuswap who are unable to access supports under the Canada Emergency Business Account or the Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program. Business owners have also lost employees and can't get them to come back to work because of the lack of flexibility in the emergency response benefit and the emergency student benefit. When the Liberals shut down Parliament, they removed our ability to amend legislation and fix their failures. When will the government fix these problems and the programs?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to look at the programs that we've put out to support Canadians to make sure that they're actually having the desired impact. As we've moved along, we have said that we need to make amendments. We've committed to extending the wage subsidy, and of course are looking at all the measures that we put out so that we can ensure that people have the support they need during this crisis.
We'll now go to Mr. Viersen. Mr. Viersen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, an April 1st letter confirms that Deloitte of Canada has been contracted to help supply PPE. Was this a sole source contract?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is correct that we have contracted with Deloitte to assist us with our operations on the ground in China in order for us to have an A to Z procurement approach to deliver goods.
We'll go back to Mr. Viersen. Mr. Viersen.
Can the minister confirm that this was indeed a sole source contract?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are a number of goods that need to be procured in order for Canadian healthcare professionals to be safe, and that's
Mr. Viersen.
Yes or no, was this a sole source contract?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will take that question back to my department and come back to the member with a further, fuller response. Thank you.
Mr. Viersen.
Mr. Speaker, is the Deloitte of Canada able to speak on behalf of PSPC?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, not at all. The contracts that we are entering into are made by us.
Back to Mr. Viersen. Mr. Viersen.
What is the value of the contract with Deloitte?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, that is information that we are not going to release at this time, but when the time is right, we will do so.
Mr. Viersen.
Many of the suppliers that are in contact with Deloitte of Canada are Indigenous contractors. Has the government secured any contracts with Indigenous suppliers?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are in touch with Indigenous suppliers, and we, as we are with many suppliers across Canada and internationally, and we are working hard to make sure we have diverse supply chains across the board, and that means including Indigenous suppliers in that mix.
Mr. Viersen.
Many of these Indigenous suppliers have previously been vetted by the federal government and are certified vendors. Is it appropriate for Deloitte to be recertifying these vendors?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member appears to have information regarding Deloitte's certification processes, which would not be outside what the government itself is doing, and I encourage him to come forward with a question that actually responds to fact before answering.
Does the minister think that re-vetting suppliers is a good use of resources?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you what I think. I believe that Canada is in a crisis, and I am making every effort to order PPE as Canadian healthcare workers require.
Mr. Viersen.
Mr. Speaker, Indigenous suppliers stand at the ready to supply PPE to Canada. Has the minister contracted any Indigenous suppliers?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are in touch with Indigenous suppliers, and we will continue to ensure that Canada has diverse supply chains in terms of manufacturer, in terms of product, in terms of country. That is our commitment to Canadian healthcare workers.
I'll go back to Mr. Viersen.
Has the government signed a contract with a single Indigenous supplier?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that we are continuing to make sure that our supplier list is confidential because we are in crisis and we do not want to jeopardize.
Back to Mr. Viersen.
Mr. Speaker, on Friday, the Association for Indigenous Business could not name a single Indigenous company that had been contracted. Mr. Speaker, of the contracts that have been signed with the federal government between Deloitte Canada and PPE suppliers, have any of those contracts been filled?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member is mistaken. Deloitte is not signing contracts on behalf of the Government of Canada. The Deloitte is assisting in sourcing manufacturers, and all contracts are signed by the government with manufacturers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We are now going to go to Mr. Paulus. Thank you very much, Chair. There is a problem of understanding with the government in terms of border management in the there is an exception for asylum seekers if they have family, but there are hundreds of Canada-U.S. couples that can't be reunited, and that's an issue. We need to rapidly tell border agents to accept spouses. Now, the Honourable Minister.
Speaker, and I appreciate very much the member's intervention and the long list of people that he sent to me. I'm also working with a number of different families. We remain committed to keeping families together. And as I advised this House earlier, Mr. Speaker, we're working diligently with our provincial and territorial partners to take the steps necessary to enable people to stay united as they cross the borders and enter into Canada, but to do so safely and not put other Canadians at risk.
Mr. Paulus.
Mr. Paulus. Chair, I think that if we accept a spouse to come to a person's home, it's not putting Canadians at risk. Now, we're going to talk about a survey. As you know, there was a survey that was done in Canada that shows that a large majority of Canadians don't trust the Chinese communist regime and don't want Huawei in Canada. Good news, we've learned that BSC and TELUS have decided not to deal with Huawei. Can the government now tell us today that no companies will be using Huawei and should be banned for 5G? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. A government will always protect Canadians and ensure that they benefit from the latest innovation in terms of telecommunications. 5G and economic considerations are being studied, and we're going to ensure Canadians and ensure that their data security will never be compromised. I'd like to remind the Minister that we have been looking at this for years, and that we've confirmed that Huawei is not reliable, and the Chinese communist regime is not reliable. It continues to lie about COVID-19 to the world. And when can the Prime Minister confirm that it will ban Huawei and send a clear message to China? This is a simple question. The Honourable Minister.
Very clear. Canadians deserve to have access to the most beneficial 5G technology, and at the same time, the safety and security of Canada's digital environment will be a paramount consideration. We're doing the work required, and we're not basing that agenda on some media report, but rather to ensure that all scientific and security factors are taken into account. We are engaged in robust discussions with our Five Eyes partners, including the United States, and all of our security agencies. Mr. Speaker, we'll do the work necessary to...
Mr. Paulus, I think that the minister doesn't need a sheet. This is a clear file. Everyone has said so. We have to ban Huawei from Canada. So I will ask a question now for the Minister of Finance. Bell was there. It talked about the cost of taking Huawei out of the development, and these companies decided not to go with Huawei now. Did the government receive a backdoor payment? Well, my next question is more a question in terms of flights. On May 25th, there were 90,000 surgical masks that were destined for the CHU in Quebec City, but they disappeared from Pearson. And did the minister ask for an investigation to find out where these masks went that were destined for Quebec? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will gladly look into this issue and get back to my colleague. I will say that in terms of masks, our procurements, generally speaking, have reached 101 million surgical masks at this time, and they're being distributed to provinces, including Quebec.
Monsieur Paulus.
Mr. Paulus, you have a time for a 15-second question. Thank you, Chair. Strange that the minister... Well, this has been happening since May 25th. I just want to know if we're going to find these masks one day. Another complicated file that's important is in the Montreal region. There's a police officer who told me that there's a network of welfare receivers who are defrauding the CERB. And these people are requesting the CERB, and building managers received checks. They know that this is illegal and it's fraud. The police officer is asking, what does he do with these checks? Should I turn them in or give them back to these frauders? The Honourable Minister.
I can assure the member that we have robust mechanisms in place to address fraud with the CERB. We understand that in delivering this benefit to 8 million Canadians to date, that we had to put more of our integrity measures at the back. But make no mistake, Canadians who behave fraudulently will be held to account, and we will ensure that the money is either repaid or not, the check's not cashed. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
We'll now go to Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, there remains a concern across Canada that delays in the criminal courts could result in criminals walking free. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court recently said in an interview that amendments to the criminal code could allow this backlog to be addressed. Can the minister outline what work has been done to address the backlog in criminal courts and when we can expect to see it addressed?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. I can assure him that we are working closely with our provincial and territorial counterparts who have the primary responsibility for the superior courts of justice and therefore the criminal law in their various jurisdictions for the administration of justice and criminal law. Can also say that we have formed an action committee co-chaired by myself and the Chief Justice of Canada, again with a variety of different kinds of representation on that committee, to look at the restart of the justice system.
Back to Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore.
What the provinces have suggested to us in terms of criminal law.
Mr. Chair, weeks ago, I raised these concerns over backlogs with the minister, backlogs in the criminal courts, and the risk that it presents to our justice system. The provinces have significant insight into how this can be addressed, and many provinces have been proactive with their court backlogs. Can the minister outline what work has been done with the provinces on this important issue?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I thank the honourable member for the question. We are working with the provinces. There are different practices in each province. We're working to serve as a coordinating role and a repository of information for best practices so that they can be shared across provinces. We're also looking at specific suggestions that provinces have made with respect to reforming the criminal law.
Mr. Moore.
Many small businesses in my riding, and indeed in all of our ridings, are suffering right now and have received absolutely no help from this government because of technicalities. 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister indicated the government was looking to expand access to the Canada Emergency Business Account, including to those who operate their business out of a personal bank account. This is something that we've been calling for over the past several weeks, and meanwhile, businesses cannot wait any longer. Can the minister tell me what we should be telling our constituents about those that are caught up based on a technicality and not being able to access this important measure?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member for that really important question. And I want to assure him and the small businesses who are in his community and indeed all across the country just how important they are and how difficult this is of a time for them. We absolutely understand, and we are hearing you, and we are working as hard and as fast as we can to make sure that those businesses get access to this very important support. I would like to highlight, though, that 650,000 small businesses across the country are getting the loan support, and of course there is more to do, and we will keep working hard for those businesses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Moore.
The lack of access to high-speed internet remains a major issue across my home province of New Brunswick. This is a significant barrier to rural economic development. It impacts the quality of life of rural constituents. The lack of progress and transparency on rural internet is frustrating for residents, for municipal leaders, and indeed for small businesses that are already suffering due to COVID. When will a new plan for rural internet be introduced, and how quickly can we expect it to be deployed?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has a plan to connect Canadians to high-speed internet. To date, we've set aside investments to connect 1 million households, and there's more work to be done. We will be announcing our next steps to connect more Canadians through the Universal Broadband Funds in the days to come, and I look forward to communities across the country benefiting from federal investments and the private investments that our investments will bring.
Mr. Moore, a 15-second question, please.
On the issue of commercial rent, how is the government going to ensure that businesses whose landlords still refuse to participate in their program receive the support that they need to stay open at this time?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think as the member knows, he would understand that rent between small businesses and landlords is a provincial jurisdiction. That said, we've moved forward to try to ensure that there's a process so that those landlords and the commercial tenants can work together to come up with a solution that will work for both. We're seeing many...
We'll now go to Ms. Atwin. Ms. Atwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Nicholas Gibbs, Colton Boushie, Tina Fontaine, Alain Magloire, Breonna Taylor. They were not born on the same side of the border, but they all lost their lives at the hand of the same cruel enemy, racism. We cannot here in Canada think higher of ourselves when we are reading the headlines of our neighbor. We cannot ignore our history, past or present. The final report of the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women stated that Indigenous women and girls have faced a Canadian genocide. In 2018, a report revealed that a Black person was almost 20 times more likely than a white person to be fatally shot by the Toronto police. And a 2019 report exposing the systemic bias among the Montreal police force against Black and Indigenous people. Black lives matter, Indigenous lives matter. Mr. Speaker, I am asking the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion, as per his mandate, what exactly does our government intend to do now to fight racism amongst its institutions? And if the Anti-Racism Secretariat has in fact been established, what priorities have been actioned?
The Honourable Minister.
I would like to thank the member for that very important question. And I will state that it is essential that we all work together, not only during this challenging time,
but during the times that come out of it. The comments that were shared earlier, this is another life lost that should not have been lost. Yes, the Anti-Racism Secretariat has been established. This is a resource not only for Canadians, but for government agencies to better how we do work internally as well, including advancement opportunities. We know that the decision-making table does not reflect the diversity of our country, and that's exactly why we came out with an open, transparent, merit-based appointment process so that we can see the country's diversity reflected at the decision-making table. There is a lot more work to do, and I can assure the member and all Canadians, my eyes are open, my ears are open, I am an ally, and I will work as hard as possible to be that voice at the cabinet table. I cannot experience what it is to be a Black Canadian, but I can tell you that your voices will be represented, they will be heard, and that I see you.
Ms. Atwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It has been 4 years since the settlement payment for the 60 Scoop survivors was approved. That resolution hasn't taken place. The pain continues. Why is it that the 12,500 class members who have been determined eligible still haven't received the payments that they are owed? These people deserve justice without any delay, especially in light of COVID-19 and the added pressures facing communities. Can the minister confirm when exactly these survivors are going to receive the interim payment?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for your advocacy on all these truly important things. And as you know, because of the exceptional circumstances of COVID-19, the Class Council, with support of Canada, was seeking direction from the courts to issue partial payments to the class members with a valid claim. On June 1st, the federal court granted that order, and a similar motion is before the Ontario Superior Court. Once granted, their eligible class members can expect to receive partial payments of $21,000 over the coming weeks. Canada welcomes the federal.
We'll now go back to Ms. Atwin. Ms. Atwin.
As soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 80% of people who are diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, will die within 2 to 5 years of receiving the diagnosis. And the pandemic has made it more difficult than ever for these people to access medical appointments and treatment. They do not have the luxury of time. They want to live and share moments with their families and their loved ones. The lack of urgency to approve new trials and therapy in Canada directly impacts the life expectancy of people with ALS. Can the Minister of Health commit to take leadership on this file and remove the barriers to accessing these promising treatments and therapies and ensure the cost of these treatments will be covered?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much to the Speaker for the very important question. And we know that people who are living with ALS and their families struggle immensely every single day. Of course, the member opposite has my commitment to work with the community and with manufacturers of drugs that are promising for ALS to expedite approval in a safe way that protects the health of Canadians but provides treatment in an affordable way for all Canadians. Thank you very much.
We'll now go on to Mr. Green. Mr. Green.
Mr. Speaker, I can't breathe, and I'm tired. And today we've heard a lot of progressive words from the Prime Minister, but he hasn't really said anything. So if the Prime Minister will not provide leadership in this House, will anybody from his cabinet here today commit to taking concrete steps to addressing anti-Black racism?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will tell you, yes, we do commit. And that's exactly why we will listen more. We will acknowledge that racism is alive in Canada. We know that we must do better. But I also need the member to recognize that this work has started. The open, transparent, merit-based appointment process is resulting in the decision-making table better reflecting Canadians. We recognize the UN International...
Back to Mr. Green. Mr. Green.
Mr. Speaker, will the member then commit today to making it a legal requirement to collecting race-based data across all their ministries?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the recently announced Immunity Task Force is providing disaggregated data to decision makers because decisions need to be based on science and evidence. Yes, I will work across all departments to ensure data is better collected.
Green.
That's not a legal requirement, Mr. Chair. It is also not lost in the black community that the former Toronto Chief of Police, which was the architect of this country's largest profiling program under the guise of street checks or carding, was made this country's Minister of Public Safety by this Prime Minister. With the tragic consequences of the unlawful, unconstitutional, and racist practices in Toronto, black people are 20 times more likely to be murdered by police than non-black people. Does the Minister of Public Safety now admit that the police practice of street checks and carding is, in fact, a significant factor in Canada's systemic anti-black and anti-Indigenous racism, and will he act to immediately end it today?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear. First of all, every Canadian is entitled to bias-free and culturally competent policing. And, Mr. Speaker, I know from experience there is nothing more corrosive to the relationship of trust that must exist between the police and racialized communities than the issue of racism, or that bias influences those decisions. Mr. Speaker, racial profiling is not only abhorrent and unacceptable, it's in fact unlawful. It's contrary to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it's contrary to the Canadian Human Rights Code. Mr. Speaker, we are working diligently within all of the federal agencies under my purview to ensure that all officers receive training on culturally competent and bias-free delivery of service, and we remain committed to creating a diverse workforce that truly reflects and respects the diverse people of this country.
Mr. Green.
Better through experience in the corrosive practice of street checks than I. Will the minister now apologize to the black community for the harm caused under his tenure as Chief of Police?
Honourable Minister.
Just to be very clear, Mr. Speaker, I have actually worked in the diverse communities of Toronto for nearly 4 decades. I worked with extraordinary leaders from the black community, and I learned extensively from their lived experience. We worked tirelessly to ensure the safety of all of the people in all of our diverse communities.
Back to Mr. Green. Mr. Green.
Bill C-51 was introduced by the Conservatives and supported by the Liberals, including this Prime Minister. It declared Indigenous, racial, economic justice, and environmental activists as domestic terrorism, and each province was mandated to enact anti-terrorism protocols, which became the direction for the local police to engage in the practice of street checks or racial profiling. Given what he has said today in the House, will this Minister of Public Safety, will he work to repeal the changes made under Bill C-51?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will repeat for the member opposite. Racial profiling and bias in the delivery of policing service is not only unacceptable and abhorrent, it is unlawful. It is unlawful. It's contrary to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is contrary to the Canadian Human Rights Act. It cannot ever be tolerated in policing in any place in Canada. But we learn from the lived experience of black and Indigenous communities who tell us that this is still their lived experience. And so, Mr. Speaker, there is a great deal of work left to do.
We'll now go. Nous allons maintenant continuer avec Monsieur Champoux.
We'll now go to Mr. Champoux. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will be sharing my time with the member for Joliette. Mr. Chairman, the Supplemental Unemployment Benefit Program is an option that enables employers to increase benefits if employees are laid off. And this is what a number of companies have done in Drummond. And the government had said it wouldn't be converting EI into the emergency benefit. Now, in the month of May, businesses realized that they wouldn't be qualifying because they exceeded the $1,000 amount. Now, in addition to that, they have to pay the CERB back because, in the end, they're deemed ineligible. So my question for the Minister of Finance is, what does he plan to do to fix this mistake? The Honourable Minister.
Maybe I'll just pause for a second. We have a point of order on the floor. Mr. Green.
The most important question that had 10 seconds left by my count on my time before I was cut off, and I would appreciate it, given the seriousness of the conversation here today, that the Honourable Minister of Public Safety please answer the question if he will apologize to the black community for the irreparable harm that was caused by the racist process of street checks and carding.
The way I work it is if there's 15 seconds or less, we go on to the next one because it's not really enough time to ask a question and get an answer either way. I will move on to Mr. Champoux. He did ask a question, and we'll let Ms. Qualtrough, the Honourable Minister, answer. Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for the question, Mr. Speaker. Sub-plans that existed prior to March 15th are very much alive and in place for companies, employers, and their employees. The CERB allows employers, if they want, to top up an employee's wages to the maximum of $1,000. But as was said, Mr. Speaker, in order to deliver this important critical benefit to Canadians, we had to go outside of the EI system. That decision was made, and as a result, 8 million Canadians are being helped. Thank you.
Monsieur Champoux.
Mr. Champoux, but there isn't a ceiling employees pay into it, and they had a guarantee that this would be the same case with the CERB. Otherwise, they would have opted for a different program, Mr. Chairman. So my question for the Minister of Finance, once again, and hopefully he will answer it this time, when does he plan to fix this mistake?
I thank the member for his question, Mr. Speaker. As we can all appreciate, delivering a benefit of this magnitude as quickly as possible resulted in us to as many Canadians as possible, both those that were EI eligible and those that were outside of EI, resulted in us having to take some decisions to streamline processes and the system. As a result, sub-plans are available for employers pre-March 15th.
Nous allons maintenant continuer avec...
We'll now continue with Mr. Sainte-Marie. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the supplementary employment to benefit, a reminder, Service Canada has reached agreements with companies but is not respecting them. The victims are the thousands of workers who have to pay their CERB payments back, as my colleague has just explained. So I'd like to reiterate the same question. Why doesn't the government do what it did with EI, not count amounts paid as income earned? It's a simple question. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as legislated, we needed to set up a straightforward, simple benefit to deliver it to as many people as possible. Of course, the nuance and sophistication of the EI system was not available to us, and as a result, as I said, 8 million Canadians are getting the CERB. Service Canada is working with each and every single employee who is in a repayment situation. We do not want to put anybody in a more difficult situation. Thank you.
Monsieur Sainte-Marie.
Mr. Sainte-Marie. Well, the truth, Mr. Chairman, is that the government's simply forgotten about them. We're talking about mothers and fathers, family figures. And they've forgotten about the thousands of workers who were benefiting from an agreement under the sub. At present, the government can fix the situation. Does it want to do so? Is it willing to do so? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me clarify that employees that were covered by a sub-plan prior to March 15th are indeed covered by that plan. And we're working with employers to make sure that their workers have this benefit, regardless of whether or not the CERB is in place. For those who accessed EI post March 15th, they've been streamlined into the CERB process, and their employers can help them up to $1,000 a month.
Monsieur Sainte-Marie.
Mr. Sainte-Marie. Well, that's not the information we have. The agreements that were signed prior to March 15th or after, there was an agreement with Service Canada. Now we've got companies that are trying to contact Service Canada. No one's answering the phones. There are no answers. And so they're paying out the amounts. And then the government's saying, well, we changed the rules and we're not complying with the agreement or respecting it. So what I understand from that is the government doesn't want to regularize the situation, and that's unacceptable, Mr. Chairman. The Honourable Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, I just want to reassure the honourable member that we have moved quickly to deal with the unprecedented volumes at Service Canada. We have set up a 1,500 agent call center to help people through the CERB, as well as redeploying 3,000 additional staff to make sure that people are helped through the EI process.
Now we'll go to the next question, which is Mr. Redicott. Mr. Redicott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As of December 31st, 2019, the total number of pending veterans disability benefits applications had already grown to over 46,000. These are the most recent public figures. What is the current total number of pending veterans disability benefit applications before Veterans Affairs?
The Honourable Minister. We're waiting. Someone's on mute, maybe? There we are.
I am sorry, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable colleague for the question and giving me the opportunity to respond to the Parliament of Canada from my home in Madrid. I can assure my honourable colleague that, as I indicated quite clearly in the House of Commons, that one of my major priorities is to make sure that we deal with the backlog and make sure that the veterans of Canada receive the benefits that they truly deserve and need.
Go back to Mr. Redekop. Mr. Redekop.
Those 46,000 applications from December of 2019 represent over 30,000 individual veterans, men and women who are suffering. How many individual veterans are currently caught in the backlog?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I again thank my colleague. And the fact is that service delivery and providing support to our veterans is, of course, my top priority. And as you understand, with this pandemic, there are some difficulties, but we are processing the same amount of decisions daily. To
Mr. Redekop. Mr. Redekop.
On March the 10th, we learned that the average time that a veteran was waiting to have their disability benefit application processed had grown to 32 weeks. What is the current average time a veteran is waiting to have their disability benefit application processed?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as I indicated, what we're doing is working to make sure that we streamline the process, make sure that some of the applicants can be done automatically, but some that cannot be done, because we have to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that what's provided to the veteran is adequate for what disability they have.
Back to Mr. Redekop. Mr. Redekop.
So it seems like having numbers is a difficult challenge for this government. On March the 10th, the Deputy Minister of Veterans Affairs committed to providing the Veterans Affairs Committee with an updated written plan on how the department will resolve this backlog. This plan was to include timelines. When will the Veterans Affairs Committee be provided with this plan?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I can assure my honourable colleague that, of course, the Veterans Affairs Committee does vitally important work, and I know how important this piece of information is for them. And my department is now working to make sure that the report itself reflects the reality we now face with the situation in the country. I can assure my honourable colleague.
To Mr. Redekop.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm sure that the department had a draft plan prior to COVID-19, so I'm wondering if Mr. McCauley can just provide the committee with that plan right now rather than wait.
Well,
the Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I can assure my honourable colleague that we are working diligently to make sure that this report is prepared and prepared properly for the committee. As I said before, I fully understand the importance of the committee and the great work that it does.
Back to Mr. Redekop.
Can you give us a timeline? Can the minister give us a timeline of when this will be given to the committee?
Well, thank you, Mr.
Go ahead,
Thank you, Mr.
Minister.
Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's difficult to give a timeline. What I want to make sure is that the report itself reflects the reality of the situation, and to make sure that the committee.
Back to Mr. Redekop. Mr. Redekop.
The minister's mandate letter instructed Mr. McCauley to implement a system of automatic approval for the most common disability applications. When will this system be implemented?
Well,
the Honourable Minister.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. And of course, this all ties into the report that your committee is waiting for, and to make sure that we're in place in order to make sure that automatic work can work, and to make sure that veterans
Back to Mr. Redekop. Mr. Redekop.
If automatic approval is implemented, does the minister know how many applications this measure will remove from the backlog?
Well,
the Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And of course, this will remove a number from the backlog, because quite simply, if you were If you're skydiving out of a plane, you're going to have knee problems. If you're a gunner, you're going to have ear problems. These things should be done automatically, and that's exactly what we're working on. But as I said before, other things are complicated, and to make sure that the veteran receives the appropriate remuneration.
And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. The committee stands adjourned until tomorrow at noon. Le comité est adjourné jusqu'à demain.
The committee stands adjourned until tomorrow at noon.